Hey, what is going on, guys? My name is Anton, and I'm going to show you guys how to create these modals. So, for example, I'm going to click on these buttons, and when I click on the button, you're going to see that these modals pop up, and you can see that we have, this header, we have some content, and we also have some stuff over here. We can cancel, we can confirm, we can also click on this modal, and this is an entirely different modal. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how to create these modals. It's going to be very, very simple. We're going to be using regular JavaScript. We're not going to be using TypeScript at all. And when I say regular JavaScript, I really mean just JavaScript. I'm sorry for confusing. I don't mean to confuse you guys. We're just going to be using JavaScript, JSX. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started with our project. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new terminal. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new project. Okay. And I'm just going to call this React.js modals. Okay, and we're gonna let this generate all the project files, and I'll come back when it's done. All right, so our project had just finished generating, and we can see that our files over here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm also gonna go ahead and install styled components. So you can install this using yarn or npm. I'm gonna go ahead and do yarn add styled components. And while this is installing, we're going to go into our project files. Let me actually go ahead and run the application. So let's just click on start. Okay. So this should open up our React app. Now keep in mind, I am not going to actually focus on much styling at all. So it's not really going to look exactly like we showed in the actual demo. I just want to show you guys the functionality, but I kind of got carried away with the styling. But I want to keep this video as short as possible because I did actually try to re-record this and it took way too long, and I don't want to release a lengthy video. So we're not going to focus on any styling at all. Okay, so I do apologize. If we have time at the end, I will add styling, maybe in the second video or something. I don't know. But for now, let's just go ahead and focus on the actual main concerns of the project. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do a couple things. Let me just... First, I actually just removed all of the JSX from the app.js component. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the CSS in here. And I'm not going to really delete any files. I'll just leave those alone. And one thing that I'll also do is we'll set the body HTML in this root tag. We're going to set the height to 100%. And that's probably the most CSS that we'll really do. Okay. So now, essentially, what we want to do is we want to basically create a reusable modal. So basically, what exactly is a modal? Well, you saw earlier in the demo, when we clicked on those buttons, it showed this backdrop or this overlay, and it showed some content in the center. Okay, so basically, you can think of a modal like you can think of it like a dialog box or like a pop-up. And it shows something significant related to whatever action it is that you're trying to do. Let's say, for example, if you want to create a modal that shows a login form, so the user is going to be responsible for typing in their credentials in the form, clicking on the submit button, and then it'll navigate them to whatever authenticated page. So that's just one example. You can use a modal to do things such as confirm if the user wants to actually, delete a post, or if they want to, provide their credit card details, whatever it is. Okay, anything you can think of. You can use modals. Basically, one thing that's good for modals, like one of the many good reasons that modals exist, you can actually use it to display content without actually needing to navigate the user to another page. Okay, so that's one thing that's pretty useful. So hopefully you guys get a better idea of how modals work. Now we're gonna go ahead and we're just gonna create some modals. So first, I'm gonna create two buttons. We'll create a delete button and we'll create a add card. So we're basically going to pretend like these two buttons, one button is going to delete the payment method, the other one is going to add a payment method. Okay, so delete card, add card. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and actually create the structure of how the modal should look like. Okay, so I'm going to create a folder called components. Okay, and what I want to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and create another folder called styles. So this is where I'm going to keep all of my style components. I'm going to create an index.jsx file. And what I'm going to do first is I actually am going to create the modal overlay. So the modal overlay is really the only thing that we're going to focus more on styling. So that's just going to be the actual overlay that has the backdrop, right? The background color of like the dark background color that's transparent. And it's also responsible for centering or displaying and centering the modal content. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and import styled from style component. So this is just going to import the styled, the entire library, and we can actually reference literally any HTML element that we want to style. So if I want to style a div, which is what we're going to do, so let's go ahead and create a variable called modal overlay. What I can do is I can assign this to style.div. So I can just type style.div just like that. You can also style anything else, like you can style sections. You can style literally all the semantic elements, any HTML element you want, even input fields, buttons, etc. What we're going to do after style.div is we're going to specify the template strings, or you can call them backticks, okay? But this is where we're going to put all of our CSS. So it's kind of like if you were using just regular CSS file and you had those curly braces, okay? You can think of these backticks like those curly braces, but inside the backticks, we're going to put all of our actual CSS. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and put a dark color, and I'll add a little transparency to the modal overlay. Now we're going to actually position this modal to be a fixed position. The reason why it's going to be fixed is because, let's say for example, if your content, if your page, let's say for example, the page that you're displaying the modal on has a lot of scrollable content, like let's say it has like a lot of content that users can scroll through. If you don't have this to fixed, when they scroll, the modal is going to stay on the top. Okay, so if you set it to fixed, even if there is scrolling functionality, the modal will at least stay there. Now you can actually also fix this by just disabling the scroll functionality. I'm not too sure how to do that, but we'll probably figure that out later on. But it's not really the most important thing right now. Okay, we're also going to go ahead and set the top and left to 0. And we're going to set the height and width to 100%. So literally the same way that you would write CSS is how you do it in style components. Okay. Now, one more thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set the display to flex, just so that I can actually vertically and horizontally align the modal content. Now, this is completely optional. You don't have to do it this way. It's really up to you on how you want to display the modal. But I personally think a modal that is vertically and horizontally centered looks the best. That's just my opinion, though. Okay, but you don't have to do this step if you don't want to. Only do this if you want the modal to be in the center. Okay? So that's the modal overlay. Now, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to create a regular function component. And I'll call this modal.jsx. Okay? So this is going to be the actual main component, the first component that we're going to need to use in order to actually display our modals. So this modal function, or this modal component, let's first create it, export const modal. It's just going to be a regular arrow function, or I'm sorry, functional component. And this modal is going to return the modal overlay. Okay? Now the modal overlay actually needs a div inside the modal overlay. And that div is actually going to have all of the contents that we want to actually display. So what we're going to do is we're going to create another style component, and I'm going to call this modal container. Okay, because it's really just going to be a container. And I'll just make this a section instead of a div. And we're going to give this a width of whatever we want. I'll do 800 pixels. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're literally just going to return modal container. Just like that. Now, what's going to go inside a modal container are all of the contents that we want inside the actual modal. But instead of actually putting all of the contents inside here, because that means every single time we're going to need to actually manually render the modal overlay as well as the modal container. To simplify things, what we're going to do is we're actually going to pass in the children prop. Okay, so that children prop is going to be rendered right over here in between the modal container. The way this works is basically when we actually need to render the modal, every single child element inside this modal will go inside here. Okay, that's pretty much how it works with the children prop. Okay, so this div node will be rendered literally right over here. So you can think of it as taking this div and then moving it inside over here. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. This is a standard React feature that I feel like people should be aware of. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and create a couple of things. So I'll go ahead and just create a modal header. So kind of similar to what you saw earlier. I'm not gonna focus so much on styling it, like I said, but I'll do my best to at least try to speed it up a little bit and style some things. So for the modal header, what I'll do is I'll give it a background color of, let's do 30, 30, 30. Okay, and we'll give the padding, let's do top and bottom 20 pixels, left and right 30 pixels. And we'll do the same thing for the modal content as well as the modal footer. Actually, the modal footer will be slightly smaller, but again, I'm not really too concerned about that. For the modal footer, we'll also have the same background color as the modal header. For the modal content, I'm going to actually remove any margins. Okay, so that should be pretty simple. So now let's actually try to render out a modal. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and render that modal. So first, let's actually make sure that we have our modal. So that's right over here. So can we actually import that? I don't know why it's not even popping up. That's kind of annoying. Import modal. Components modal. Okay, so let's go ahead and render this modal. So this is literally just going to render the modal overlay and modal container with the children, if there are any child props, or not child props, children nodes. So if I actually go back to the screen, you'll see that we have the overlay right over here, and I can't even click on the buttons. Okay, I can't even click on the buttons, though I could actually highlight it if I double click it. Okay, let's actually also give this a z index. So let's give it a z index of, let's do 99. Okay, whoops. Something's wrong with my VSC. Okay. So what we're going to do now is let's actually just give this a little darker background. Okay, cool. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get the modal header. Remember, we don't need to put the actual modal container because this modal actually wraps the modal container. It takes all the child nodes and it wraps it with the modal container. So everything that we put inside modal is actually going to be wrapped. So let's just do the modal header. So let's just do an h1 or a p tag. Let's just do delete card, for example. Okay, you can see delete card is right over here. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Though it doesn't have a background color, but let's actually see if we can give it a different color instead. There we go. That one was a little bit dark, but I think this one should be a little bit better. It's most likely because of the actual background color itself, because it's just way too dark. There we go. I think this is a little bit better. So let's try 23, 23, 23. Yeah, I think that's okay. And then we'll also set the color to white as well. Okay, cool. So we have delete card and then the modal content now. So for the modal content, let's go ahead and do that. So content right over here. And we'll just have a p tag, hello world. Okay, and we'll style this up a little bit. Let's change the background color to, let's just inverse it. So let's do background color is white, and then the actual text color, we'll just leave it as black. It's not really that big of a deal. And the p tag does have margin, though it seems like I wasn't able to remove it with the margin 0, so we just manually remove it like this. Okay. And if I want to, I can also just add whatever stuff I want. And last but not least, we'll add the modal footer. So I just want to at least get all of these things out first. Okay, so we'll just say footer. And typically the footer, this is where we're going to actually keep our actions. So the button actions. So for example, we're going to create the cancel button as well as the confirm button. Okay, so if I click on cancel, it's going to close the modal. If I click on confirm, it will do whatever it is that you want to do, and then it'll close the modal in the end. Both these buttons typically do close the modal, but the confirm button usually calls like an API or does some kind of validation or calls some function, whatever it is. Okay, but in the end, it does close the modal. At least that's what our end goal will be. Whatever it is that you want to do, that's up to you. Okay, so that's going to be it for this modal. So now let's actually take this and let's move it into a component. So let's just say, for example, we want to create reusable modals, right? Let's create a modal called delete card modal.jsx, and let's export const delete card modal. Okay, and we're gonna go ahead and let's import all the necessary things that we need. So we need the header and we need the content. Okay, so now instead of having just one modal that's literally hard-coded over here, we have a modal that we can actually display like this. But we need to add some conditional rendering. So how do we do that? So the easy way is we just create a state variable. We create a state variable that pretty much has, let's call it visible, set visible. Okay, and what we can do is we can make this a boolean, and we can conditionally render delete card modal. And my IntelliSense does not want to be friendly with me, so I guess I gotta import this from components. Okay, so how do we actually get this to show? Well, if we click on delete card button, we can actually just call set visible, and then we can just call true. So if I click on delete card, it shows that over there. Now, how would I close the modal? Well, that's going to be pretty simple. If I go into delete card modal, and if I actually pass in the set visible function, that's the this setter function for the use state variable. If I actually just pass this in as a prop, I can actually call this function whenever the buttons, the cancel or confirm button, are clicked on. So I can go ahead and just call set visible false, and likewise do the same thing here, and that would update the state. That would update the state from the child. Okay, so it would pretty much update the state variable of the parent, the parent component. Okay, so for example, set visible is going to pass in false. It's going to call this function, and it will literally just close the modal just like that. Very simple. Okay, there you go. Perfect. All right, cool. So what's next? Now, what if we actually wanted to create another modal? So let's say we had an add card modal, and it shows up, right? Now, we could do the same thing. We could make it so that we have another state variable that controls the functionality of that. Okay, but now there's also other things that come into the question. What if I want to make it so that when I hit the escape key, it'll close the modal? And what if I want to make it so that when I click on the backdrop or the overlay, it'll close the modal as well? How do I do that? Okay, so we're going to actually create a hook to handle all of this for us. Okay, so we're going to start off with the escape key to close the modal. Because right now, if I hit the escape key, you can hear my keyboard, I'm hitting it. The escape key is not going to actually, when you click on the escape key, or when you press on the escape key, it's not going to actually close the modal. So we're going to do that one first. So this one's actually going to be fairly easy. All we literally need to do is we just need to listen to the key down event. So before I actually get into the hook, let me actually show you how this would work. So we basically use the use effect hook, and inside the use effect hook, we would create a function called handle key down. The reason why we're going to create a function, like an actual named function for this, is because, or I named arrow function, is because we're going to actually need the reference to this function later to actually remove the event listener. Because what we're going to do is we're going to add an event listener to the window, and we're going to call it, let's see, key down, pass and handle key down. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I did not mean to do that inside the function. I meant to do that over here. Okay, and key down is going to take in an event, and that event is going to have that key code or the key. So e.key is going to give us the key. You can also use the key code too, but we can just use key. That's completely fine. Okay, so for example, right now, if I open up my console, you can see that. Let me zoom in a little bit. You can see that whatever key I type or hit, it'll give me A. Or I'm sorry, I'm in the console. Whoops. That's wrong. Let me go over here. Let me click on the DOM, the document, and if I type A, it's going to log A. Whatever key I type, it's going to log it. So for example, we only want to care about the escape key, nothing else. So we'll go ahead and just check to see if e.key is equal to escape. we just set visible to false. And you're going to see how easy that is going to work. So for example, let's click on escape right now. Nothing's going to happen. Well, actually, it's still actually going to call this set visible, but since it's already not visible, it's not even going to do anything. It's not really going to change much. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on delete card. If I hit escape, you're going to see that it logs in the console and it closes the modal. So there's that. Okay, now one more thing that we're going to do is we're going to also remove the event listener when the component unmounts. So we'll call return arrow function, and we'll do window.remove event listener key down, and we're going to pass the reference to that callback function. Okay, and that should pretty much be it. Now we should also now obviously the problem here right now is that we don't want to have everything inside the actual app component. So this is what I mean when I said I wanted to create a separate hook for this. So let's go into the utils file, and I'm going to create a file called hooks.jsx, okay? And the way this is going to work is we're going to basically export this function. So this function is going to be called useModal, and we're literally just going to copy and paste this inside here. Import the necessary hooks that we need, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to return functions. So we're going to call it set visible, or visible set visible. Now I think I'm going to name this better. I'll probably call this open, or maybe let's see, open. And then let's just call this open modal, I guess. Okay, I wanna name it much better, so we'll do that. Okay, so now we can actually just delete all of this stuff. We can go ahead and call useModal, and we can literally just get the values that we want. So open modal. Okay, so whenever we go ahead and want to set the modal to open, we'll pretty much just call open modal. Okay, so that's pretty much how we can do it with the hooks. Okay, now how do we actually make it so that when we click on the backdrop or the overlay, how do we have that close it? The way we're gonna do that is by using a ref. Okay, so refs are gonna allow us to pretty much get actual like the actual node from the DOM itself. Okay, so we can create refs by simply using the useRef hook. So I'm going to call this modal ref equal to useRef, and we're going to pass in null. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to basically just return this modal ref. Okay, and we can just destructure it like this. Now the modal ref, we're going to actually assign this ref to the overlay. So we're going to go inside delete card modal. We're going to go inside modal. Okay. Now, modal is going to take in the children prop, but it's also going to take in the modal ref prop. So modal ref. And the overlay is going to have the ref itself. Okay? The reason why we're going to assign the ref to this modal overlay, or we're going to pass in as a prop, is because essentially what's going to happen is, well, let me actually just show you. So let's just use the useEffect hook, and let's console log the modal ref. So that way you guys can see what it looks like. So let's go ahead and click on this. You're going to see that, let's see, modal is it's currently, let's see, undefined. Oh, you know why? Hold on, wait, I'm sorry. We passed this into modal. Oh, we didn't pass it through the delete card modal. So that's why it's undefined. So we need to actually pass that in. So let's go over here real quick. Delete card modal. Let's pass in modal ref. And let's go ahead and go over here. And let's also pass in modal ref. Or let's take it in as a prop. And we're going to pass it down to here. And now we should get the ref. So if I click on delete card, you're going to see that over here on line 6, this is the actual ref. And you can even see that it highlights what it is that it's referring to, the actual overlay. Okay. Now we're passing the ref to this overlay prop. The reason why we're passing this ref as a prop to the modal overlay is because whenever we click on the overlay, what we're going to do is we're going to check to see if the current element that's been clicked on is actually the overlay. And if it is, if the actual element is clicked on, that's the overlay, and if it's equal to the ref, remember the ref is literally a reference to the actual HTML node itself. So we can actually do things like, call events. We can add event listeners to it. We can also focus on it if we want to programmatically, right? That's one way that how you could do stuff like, focus in input fields immediately, right? So what we're going to do essentially with this ref, remember this ref refers to this overlay. All we have to do is we need to check which area we're clicking on. And so whenever we click on, let's say we click over here, the event object is going to have a property called target, and that is going to actually tell us where we're clicking on. So for example, we're going to attach an on-click event listener, and let's just console log E real quick. Or not E, but maybe E.target, because that's where we're going to click on, right? So if I click over here, you're going to see that this is the class, and you can see that this literally is the same node as this one over here. They're literally the same exact node. Okay? If I click over here, it's literally the same as the actual ref itself. The class names are the same. If I even click on this, it'll go to over here, which is the overlay itself. Okay? So if I click over here, though, you're going to see that this area over here is actually a different node. It's a different target. So actually, if you try to actually assign the ref to this modal container, it wouldn't actually be a good idea because you wouldn't be able to actually tell if you're actually clicking on the overlay or not. Or actually, the hard part would be actually, if you were to assign the modal, actually, let me phrase that. If you were to assign the ref to this modal container, the problem is that you wouldn't actually be able to get the actual div itself, like this actual section area. You would only be able to get like the actual inner node itself. Like there's no way that, because I tried it before and it was actually pretty difficult. Like I'm clicking on this header or this footer. Oh wait, did I actually do something by accident? Wait, let me go back to styles. I may have actually used footer as header. This should be a footer. Okay, but look at this modal container. Whenever I click on it, you can see that the target never logs the modal container. It never logs that section. It only logs the header. It doesn't log anything else, right? So that's a little bit problematic. So the easier thing to do is just to pass the ref as a prop to the overlay, and then check to see if the overlay is equal, or I'm sorry, the target is equal to the ref, which is assigned to the overlay. And if it is, we can literally just call the set visible or open modal function and set it to false. So how do we do that? Well, all we got to do is just, let's do this. So let's go into delete cart modal. We're going to pass in, actually, let me not call it set visible. Let me call it open modal instead. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to pass open modal to this modal component. So that's going to get passed into here. And all we can do is we can literally just say right over here, let's go into onClick. And what we can do is we can just check to see if e.target is equal to modal ref.current. So if they're the same node, we can literally just call open modal and then just pass in false. Okay, and watch what happens if I click here now. The actual overlay or the actual modal just disappears. And if I actually click on the inner part, like the actual content, it won't actually do anything. If I click just slightly over here, it'll actually close the modal. Okay, now we're actually going to do one thing. We're going to make this a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the use modal hook, and I'm actually going to take this. I'm going to put this inside a function. So let's do on close, I guess, or let's just see what's a better way to name this. So let's see, close handle close, or I mean, what's a good name for this? Overlay close, I guess. But all this is just going to do is it's just going to check to see if, well, it's going to take in the event object first, and we're going to check to see if the event.target is equal to modal ref, because we have the modal ref up here. Okay. And if it is, then we'll literally just call our own function open modal. Okay. And so now instead of having this defined over here, we can just literally, let's see. You know, I'll just call it on close. Pass an on close over here. Or, yeah, we'll pass an on close into modal. Okay. And we'll go into delete card modal. So instead of passing open modal now, we're actually just going to pass in the onClose function. And so let's do onClose. So delete card mode is going to take in that onClose function, and this is going to be passed in over here. So modal itself actually won't even need, I don't even think it'll need the open modal function actually. Yeah, I don't think it'll need this open modal. It'll only need the modal ref and the, actually, I don't even, yeah, actually, no, it still needs the ref, yeah. That's definitely required. The onClose is going to be required for, like, the actual click stuff. Okay, so if I click on it now, you're going to see that it will actually work. Okay, we just took the function, we put it inside the hook, and we're returning it, and we're just passing it as a prop. We pass it all the way down to modal, and over here in modal, you can see that we assign onClose as the function to be called whenever we click on the modal overlay. Okay, that's pretty simple. Let me just delete this line up here because we're not using it. Okay, so we actually have a pretty well-functioning modal. Let me actually do one more thing. Let me actually create a couple functions. Let's do open modal. I'm actually gonna create. Let me do this. So open modal will set open to true. I'd rather just do this instead because I think it'll look a lot better in my opinion. Close modal. Okay, and then we'll set open to false. Okay, so and all we'll do is instead of passing open modal now, well, actually open modal is this function. We'll also pass in close modal. Okay, and what's gonna happen is let's see, let's pass in close modal. Okay, and so instead of passing in true, we'll just literally just call open modal. That's it. Close modal, we will pass that in as a prop as well. So delete card modal will now take in that close modal function. Yeah. Yep, it'll take in that close modal function. Whoops. And then we can just call close modal. And this is just something that I just want to do out of preference. You don't have to do this. It's really up to you. Okay, so, and do we really need open modal? We probably don't even need open modal, but we could. But I don't really think it'd be useful anyways. Okay. So if I call delete card, so right now actually, it's not closing it. The reason why it's not closing is because we are still using open modal, so we have to call close modal. So we'll call the inner function. Okay. So we have a nice API working. So now if I click on this, it works. Click on cancel, it works. Click on confirm, it works. Click on this, it'll actually show it. So that's great. Okay, awesome. So we have our modal working just fine. Now the next question is, how do we actually reuse this over and over again? So let's say, for example, if I want to create another modal, well, what we're going to do actually is we can actually just recall this use modal hook, but we probably should not destructure all these props. So let's just say, for example, if you have only one modal, this is completely fine. But if you have a bunch of modals that you want to display on the page, you probably should not destructure this. Okay, so the way that I would recommend you do this is like this. So let me actually see if I can make this a little bit better. And this is why I wish I used TypeScript, because then I could just type annotate everything, so I won't be confused on what is required as a prop. Okay, so delete card modal, what we can do is we can actually expect all of these props. So for example, instead of just destructuring this, let me just call this delete card modal states, or I'll just call it delete card modal. Okay, and now if I want to basically call open modal, I can just do delete card modal dot open modal, and all of the props I can just pass in here. So we already have, let's see, so the only additional props that are going to be passed in is open and open modal, which is going to be fine. So we'll just pass in those props by destructuring them. Whoops, not like that. Like this. And then we'll do delete card modal dot open. Okay, so now if I click on this one, it will display this modal. And if I wanted to create another modal, because let's say if I want to have different modals that can be displayed, let me first create the add card modal.jsx. And we'll literally just copy and paste this over here. And we'll just call this add card, and we'll just create add card. We'll just have one p tag, and then we'll have the same actions for cancel and confirm. And let's go ahead and import this. So let's go ahead and do add card. I don't know why my IntelliSense does not want to auto import, but it's fine. So let's go ahead and call use modal again. So this is going to call the hook again and give us state. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and check to see if add card modal is open, and we're going to render add card modal. And let's just go ahead and import that up here. Add card modal. And now, if I click on this add card, let's add that click event. We're going to go ahead and call add card modal dot open modal, just like that. So watch what happens. So if I click on add card is going to be displayed. And actually, what's going on over here? Oh, wait, I didn't pass in the props. Whoops. Yeah, you need to pass in the props. There we go. And this is why I wish I had TypeScript. But it's fine. Okay, so let's see. Right now, actually, what's going on here? Let me refresh this. So these are not working. Let's actually go back into our add card modal. So the reason why these are not working is because, let's see, what's going on over here? Oh, wait, what am I doing? Why am I passing in delete card modal again? That's a little bit weird. All right, this should work now. I was a bit confused. Okay, there we go. Click on add card, cancel. Click on add card, confirm. Click on add card, click on the overlay. And if I hit escape, wait, what just happened? Oh, wait, I think I found a bug. So if I hit escape, it actually does something else, which is very weird. So let's figure out what's going on. So with the add card modal, we have the onClose function, which is over here. I'm not sure why it's closing. I'm not sure why it's doing that though. So when we use the escape button, oh wait, hold on. I made a mistake. I realized I forgot to change this because we're still using the open modal. We have to call close modal. Okay, there we go. That should fix it. Hit escape. Hit escape. There we go. That's what we want. Cancel. Confirm. Click on the overlay. Hit escape again. Hit escape. Perfect. That's exactly what it is that we want. Now, one problem that I will note is that if we can actually still focus on the buttons in the background, because you can see that right now we have this overlay right over here. If I actually hit tab, you can actually see that this button is over here, and if I hit spacebar, I think that'll actually display the modal. So let me display modal again. Now if I hit, let me see. Yeah, you can see over here I just displayed the modal again. So I actually was looking this up as I was making this tutorial, and this one's actually going to be a little bit complicated. We're not going to do this in this video, but one thing that I will tell you to look up is look up how to actually keep focus on a modal, and you'll find a lot of solutions on how to do it. I've just never done it before or have learned how to do it, so I can't really teach you guys how to do that at the moment. But that is one problem that I will mention, because right now you can see that on the overlay, if I click over here, nothing's going to happen, but it doesn't excuse the person from just literally hitting tab and hitting a bunch of modals, right? But now, if I actually just click cancel, even if they actually try to open a bunch of modals, I really don't think that would actually be any... I don't think it will be problematic though, because think about it like this, right? So right now, you saw how I have the same modal opened up, and if I highlight on that add card button, if I hit spacebar, right, that's literally just going to call add card modal dot open modal. Okay, and literally the state is already the same. The state is already true, so it's already being shown. The only problem here is that it'll literally, if you try to hover over the delete card, not hover, but focus on that button, and if you hit spacebar, that'll open up the actual modal, the actual delete card modal background, okay, in the back. So you can see that it shows up over here, which is a problem. A couple things that you could possibly do is you can disable the button when one thing to get around this is you can literally disable the button if it's open. So delete card modal open. So that's one thing that you could do is just disable the button. So let me see how the buttons look like. So yeah, you can see that it gets disabled. So that's one workaround that I guess that you could do that works, but again, the better thing to do is to literally just learn how to focus only on the actual modal itself. There's a way that you can do this. Again, I've never learned it before, but I'm telling you guys that you guys can look that up and figure it out. So now watch this. If I go ahead and you can see that that add card is disabled. Well, actually, wait. It should actually be the other way around. It should be if it should actually be. Let's do this. For this case, we'll just cheat a little bit and we'll do this. But if you actually have a bunch of modals, this will actually be pretty. This will actually be. Oh, actually, what am I doing? Not this. Wait, what am I doing? It's supposed to be this over here. So this will work because it's, we only have a few modals. But if you have a lot of modals, this becomes very problematic. Okay, so one thing to note. So you can see that both the buttons are disabled. If I try to focus on it, I can't even see it's being focused. Seems like it's disabled, so it won't focus. So yes, that's one way. That's one thing that you could do. But I don't think it's the best way because, like I said, if you have a bunch of modals, your logic is going to be very complex. You're going to have a bunch of conditional values. Okay. But like I said, the better thing to do is just learn how to only allow focus on this element over here when it's opened up. Okay, so that's just pretty much it for this modal part. And yeah, that is literally pretty much it for the modal. Like, that's literally all there is to it. You can literally now create a bunch of modals and do whatever you want. So hopefully you guys like this video. If you guys like this video, definitely leave a comment and leave a like. It really does help out the channel a lot. And if you guys like this video a lot, definitely subscribe and check out my other videos on React and any other videos on my channel. So with that being said, I think we've covered everything with modals. Okay, this entire thing is pretty reusable, and I think honestly I'd probably use this for my future projects. Obviously, once I figure out how to only allow focus on the modal itself and not buttons outside of it. But yeah, so that is going to be pretty much it. I hope you guys like this video, and I'll see you guys in my next tutorial. And also, one more thing that I'll mention is that all of the code will be in the description. Okay, I'll leave a link to the GitHub repository. So yeah, once again, that's going to be pretty much it. See you guys in my next video. Peace out.